The auction hall reeked of desperation and disinfectant. Rhea stood at the back, her worn jacket pulled tight against the sterile cold that seemed to seep from the very walls of Station Kara's 9. Around her, beings from a dozen species muttered and gestured, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices as they examined the merchandise on display. Merchandise. The word left a bitter taste in her mouth. She had been tracking the smuggling ring for 3 months, following a trail of falsified documents and bribes that led from the outer colonies all the way to this forgotten station on the edge of council space. The Galactic Council had laws against this sort of thing, strict ones, but laws meant nothing when enforcers could be bought and officials looked the other way. The auctioneer, a Vendorian with scales that shimmered an oily green, gestured toward the next lot. Item 73. Xylar Cub, approximately 4 standard cycles old, unregistered, no family claim. Bidding starts at 2,000 credits. Rhea's breath caught. The cub was small, even for its species. Xylarians were known throughout the galaxy as apex predators, 8 feet tall when fully grown, with razor-sharp claws and a bite force that could crush duralloy. Their homeworld had been glassed during the Schism Wars decades ago, and the survivors had scattered across council space, most becoming mercenaries or enforcers. But this cub was none of those things. Nico couldn't have been more than 3 feet tall, his gray fur matted and dull. His large golden eyes darted around the room, wide with fear. The muzzle clamped around his snout was rusted and too tight, and Rhea could see the raw skin beneath where it had chafed. His small hands' paws really were bound in front of him with magnetic restraints that hummed with a low, cruel energy. 2,000s, someone called out. A Kryn trader, by the looks of it, probably looking for cheap labor for his mining operation. 2,500, countered another voice. The cub flinched at each shout, his ears flattening against his skull. Rhea watched as he looked from face to face in the crowd, searching for something kindness, perhaps, or mercy. He found neither. 3,000. The auctioneer's smile widened, revealing rows of needle-thin teeth. Excellent. Do I hear 3,500? Rhea's hand moved to her side, where her credit chip sat in her pocket. She had been saving for months, scraping together every credit from bounties and odd jobs. The money was supposed to buy her a new ship, or at least repair the aging freighter that barely made jump these days. The cub's eyes met hers. In that moment, something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or simply the desperate plea of one living being to another. His lips moved beneath the muzzle, and though no sound emerged, Rhea could read the words. Please, 3,500. The Kryn again. 4,000. A Veshan merchant, cold calculation in her multifaceted eyes. The auctioneer pointed his gavel at the Veshan. 4,000. Going once. 10,000 credits. The room fell silent. Every head turned toward Rhea as she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the stunned quiet like a blade. She held up her credit chip, her hand steady even as her heart hammered against her ribs. The auctioneer's eyes gleamed with greed. 10,000, a generous bid from the human. Do I hear 11? Silence. The Kryn muttered something in his native tongue and turned away. The Veshan's antennae twitched in irritation, but she made no counteroffer. 10,000 credits was more than a cub was worth, especially one from a dead species with no prospects. Going once, going twice. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold to the human. Rhea's ship was a dump, but it was her dump. The perihelion had seen better days decades ago, but the engine still hummed and the life support still worked. Mostly. She carried Nico aboard, his small body trembling in her arms despite the blanket she'd wrapped him in. The moment the airlock sealed behind them, she set him down gently on the deck and reached for the muzzle. Hold still, she murmured. This is going to hurt, but I'll be quick. The cub watched her with those impossibly large eyes as she worked the release mechanism. The muzzle came free with a hiss, and Nico gasped, sucking in deep breaths of recycled air. His muzzle was raw and bleeding where the metal had dug into his skin. Rhea's jaw tightened. Bastards, she muttered. She moved to the restraints next, carefully deactivating the magnetic lock. The moment they fell away, Nico pulled his hands close to his chest, rubbing at the burned fur. Can you talk? Rhea asked gently. The cub's voice was small and hoarse, as if he'd forgotten how to use it. Why? Why what? Why you buy me? His words were halting, his grasp of standard clearly rudimentary. Nobody wants me. I single quotes M. broken. Worthless. Rhea felt something crack inside her chest. She knelt down so she was at eye level with him. You're not worthless, Nico. His ears perked up slightly at the sound of his name. You know name? I heard them use it at the auction. She reached out slowly, telegraphing her movements so she wouldn't startle him. When he didn't pull away, she placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Listen to me. What they told you that you're worthless, that nobody wants you, that's a lie. You hear me? A lie. But no buts. Her voice was firm but kind. You're a kid. You deserve to be safe. You deserve to be cared for. And I'm going to make sure that happens. Nico's golden eyes searched her face, looking for the trick, the catch, the cruelty he'd learned to expect. Why you care? You human. Humans not even like Xylarians, Rhea smiled sadly. Humans have a bad habit of caring about things we probably shouldn't. We're stubborn like that. She stood and offered him her hand. Come on, let's get you cleaned up and fed. Then we can figure out what comes next. The cub stared at her hand for a long moment. His small fingers reached out tentatively, barely touching hers, as if afraid she might disappear if he grabbed too tightly. Nobody wants me, he whispered again, but this time it was a question, not a statement. Rhea's grip tightened gently around his hand. I do, she said. I always have. The Perihelian's medical bay was barely more than a closet with a scanner and some basic supplies, but it was enough. Rhea cleaned Nico's wounds with a gentleness that surprised even herself, applying Bactigel to the raw patches on his snout and wrists. The cub didn't cry out, though she knew it had to hurt. He just watched her with those large, luminous eyes, as if trying to memorize every detail of her face. You're very brave, she told him as she worked. Not brave, Nico replied quietly. Just used to hurting. The words hit Rhea like a physical blow. She paused, the applicator hovering over his skin. Well, that ends now. You're safe here. Safe. The word sounded foreign on his tongue, as if he was testing its weight. What is safe? Rhea finished applying the gel and set the applicator aside. Safe means nobody's going to hurt you anymore. Safe means you get to sleep without being afraid. Safe means ... double quotes, she trailed off, searching for the right words. Safe means you get to be a kid. Nico's ears drooped. Don't know how to be kid? Then I'll teach you. Rhea stood and extended her hand again. Come on. I've got ration bars that actually taste decent. And I think there's some hot chocolate mix somewhere in the galley. As they walked through the narrow corridors of the ship, Nico's small hand still clasped in hers, Rhea felt the weight of what she'd just done settling on her shoulders. 10,000 credits. Her savings gone. Her plans for a new ship indefinitely postponed. She looked down at the small, scared cub walking beside her and couldn't bring herself to regret a single credit.